Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Ali Downey.
Holy shit, you're loud there.
Bob
Ali,
says, turning Ali down.
Yeah, always have to turn you down lower than me. It's your powerful resonance.
Yeah, it's my powerful voice.
That's what it is, Alistair.
It projects.
At least there's something powerful about you.
One thing.
One thing, yeah. What's the second most powerful thing about you?
My wit.
Your wit. I like it. I'll take that. And do you know what? I will say that your voice is the most powerful thing. Your storytelling is the second. Your wit is way down there,
Is
man.
it way down there? Yeah.
My most powerful thing is running away from the police.
That's a good skill to have, though.
I lost a lot of it since I was about 16 or 17. But
That might be the handiest superpower for a preteen.
for a preteen.
The ability to evade the police. It would have been handy for us.
Fuck yeah, it would have been. We did a lot of running away. A lot of hiding in trees, actually.
Yep, and bushes.
Bushes. Blowing up batteries. Remember that night?
I remember that night.
Yeah, I don't know how we got there this early in a podcast.
Garden runs.
What would you call a garden run? Let's put this out there. People...
Today, trespassing.
Trespassing. Very good.
That's what you'd call a garden run.
Very good. I'd call it chappy.
Chappy.
Yeah. We did chappy down Highfields in Dunblane. It was like the perfect run of gardens with low fences. We never did that.
We never did that.
Never did
People
that.
who live in Highfields, that was not us.
Have you heard of Ding Dong Dash?
Ding Dong Dash?
Yeah. I don't like it as much as chappy.
Chappy was better.
Yeah. If you have another term for...
Equally illegal.
Oh, also trespassing.
Yeah.
If you have another name for rattling some cunt's door and running away, knock down ginger is what I've just been shouted at. How very dare you?
Knockdown Ginger is a very different game in Scotland. It's where we find the ginger and then we knock him down.
I think I might have been the subject of knockdown ginger.
Frequently and often. Sometimes in cars.
Weird way to start a podcast, but here we are.
We are here. We are in the settle. We are joined today as well by two of our oldest fans, Louise and Craig, which is amazing.
Not oldest because of their age.
No, oldest because of the amount of time that they've been listening to us.
There we are. A woo in the background.
Nice.
They were here for the... We've done two... This is our second recording of the evening.
It is.
And we're doing this because we don't need to go into it because we touched on it on several occasions. Ali has fucked off down south.
Yeah.
Sarah's stolen him from me, is what's happened.
She's stolen me from you.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the cutest thing you've ever said.
I loved you first, Alistair. That's all
true.
I'm saying. But we are in the settle in and we're doing a couple of recordings this evening, and we're following on from what I think was the longest recording we've ever done.
It was the longest recording we've ever done. Certainly in word count and in minutes. Good luck editing that.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thanks for that. However, you are nowhere near finished.
No, this is only episode 2 we're doing now of at least a 3-parter.
Are we gonna put a number on it, or it might be trilogy /
It's a trilogy, and then I think we're going to record either a Patreon or a shorter episode where I'd like to talk about what it was like to do this episode and why I told the story the way I did.
Very much look forward to that. What do you call a 4-part thing? A quadrology?
A quadrology.
A quadrology. Quite like that word. Quadrology is a good word. So you left us, we left you last time at the point where a murder had been committed.
Yes.
Singular.
The boy that we are following has been systematically poisoning people and has definitely killed at least one.
But we covered. I would say episode 1 covered the breakdown of a life building up to something. Certainly, interjected wise, both of our thoughts on what it was to be of that age and delivering that and our, I don't want to say shock with it, but like the incomprehension of what that would be.
Yeah.
So do we lead on directly from that into this episode?
Yeah, we lead on directly. The second episode in what we're probably going to call the Teacup Trilogy.
Well, I mean, it's what I've written down here, so it's what we're calling it.
It's like the Cornetto Trilogy, but sad.
I love a cornetto.
Cornetto.
What's your favourite cornetto?
I like the hazelnut one.
Oh, controversial. I very much enjoy the strawberry one, but it still has to have the solid bit of chocolate at the bottom, just as a plain bit of chocolate.
Yeah, of course it does.
Has to be treat at the end of a treat.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What's your least favourite ice cream dessert? Is it vodka Calippo?
Oh, fucking honestly, that wasn't a dessert. That was my breakfast, you bell end. So I feel like we have to explain this. We had the pleasure of going on a stag do to Eastern Europe. We were in Budapest. Which my favourite fact about Budapest was it was two cities. It was Buda and Pest, and then they joined, and it became the capital of Hungary. We were sat one morning in Fat Frank's party hostel.
Yeah.
Was it
Fat Frank's grandiose party hostel?
It's fucking. I mean, and we saw some shit that day that will never be talked about.
No,
ever again.
No, don't take this as an endorsement in any way of Frank's grandiose party hostel.
However, if they would like to sponsor us, I'll happily.
Yeah,
we had a wonderful time.
It was great. Changed my life.
Ali went out one morning earlier than the rest of us because he was still screaming junk from the night before.
I was.
And I wanted a Calippo for breakfast. And Ali came back with, was it a lemon and lime?
I brought you a Calippo, yeah, it was delicious.
But it was a fucking lemon and lime.
Yeah.
I wanted an orange one, but anyway. And I said the only thing that this could save anything is if there was vodka in it. Passing comment, just throw it out there into the ether.
Yeah, but somebody had also brought a bottle of vodka back with them as well.
Who was that somebody else?
That was somebody was me.
Yeah, and you then tipped fucking vodka into my Calippo.
I filled your Calippo with vodka.
It was the most amount of breakfast heartburn I've ever had.
And then we went to a spa.
We did go to a spa. Like a massive outdoor spa.
Yeah.
It was banging.
Got enough of this drinking. This stag do malarkey. Let's all just go to a spa.
I was flying, and it was like 8 a.m.
It was amazing.
You think so?
I do.
My body does not forgive you.
No.
Anyway, an insight into our stupid lives.
Yeah.
Which probably you get more often than you need on a true crime
want.
podcast, or want in a true crime podcast. But yes, we get back to our boy.
Yeah, let's get back to our story. As a quick recap, even though I'm sure you'll all remember, we talked last episode about the early life and crimes of Fred Young's son, who by the age of 14 had, during the course of years of obsessive experimentation, poisoned his entire family, his few friends, and many of his classmates with various poisons, including antimony, digitalis, atropine, which is belladonna, and thallium. By 1962, when the boy's crimes were at last discovered and he was arrested, his stepmother Molly had already died from a massive dose of thallium, and his father was bedridden and close to death with irreparable liver damage from months of antimony poisoning. His other victims, including his sister Winifred, had only escaped death due to the boy's extensive knowledge of lethal and non-lethal doses.
Wonderful summary. Can I ask, before we go further on, you say there is extensive knowledge of like that tipping point between lethal and non-lethal dosage.
Yes.
Like we came to the conclusion, I think, fairly easily in the last episode that he had been experimenting on animals and humans to get to this point.
Yes.
Was he an expert in his field?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely at this point.
His field being poisoning of
yes.
a mammal.
Yes.
He
was definitely an expert in his field. In a few pages and what will constitute as a few months, he will stand trial for poisoning, and he will show greater knowledge than some of the expert witnesses called. Now, suspicions were finally raised after the hospitalization of Fred Young himself, very quickly following the death of his wife, Molly. Fred's blood and urine had been sent to a specific facility for testing, and traces of unusual poisons that his son had been giving him had been found.
So when we left the last episode, we were talking about the death of the stepmother, sorry. Yep. And we, between us, but came to the conclusion that although the cause of death was correct, the cause of death was incorrect.
Yeah, exactly. The cause of death was the antimony that she'd been poisoned with for months by her stepson, and the actual cause of death was thallium, which her son had given her a huge dose of the night before.
But we skipped forward, in our time, 8 minutes, but in this, a couple of months-ish?
No, not even a couple of months, I'd say weeks.
But then there is then a toxicology report.
Yes.
Done. Do we know why that decision to do that was?
It was because Fred's sister Wynne had come to the doctor with him to voice her concerns that she thought he was being poisoned by his by his son, her nephew.
And then the toxicology report was done.
Exactly. The Dr. Willis, I think, didn't believe her, but to alleviate her fears, he ordered blood tests that wouldn't normally have been done.
Okay.
And they showed antimony and cyanide.
So that's a big step here then.
Yeah, it is.
In the course of the case and the fact that they can then start to attribute.
Exactly. Subsequent searches of the boy's bedroom and school desk and the places that his friends knew he had chemicals had turned up enough poisons and toxic substances to kill at least 300 people.
Sparta.
The police had no direct evidence, however, that he had killed his mother-in-law, as Molly's body had, if you remember, been cremated when he himself had suggested it to his father.
Because he wasn't an idiot.
Far from it. High-functioning, very highly intelligent person. Now, we talked briefly about his arrest in our last episode, but I'd like to start today by covering it in a little more detail.
Please do.
The date is the 22nd of May, 1962. The police have enough evidence to believe that the boy has been poisoning many people in small doses for months, and they're ready to arrest him at his Aunt Wynne's house, where he and his older sister Winifred were staying while their father Fred was recovering in hospital. Detective Inspector Crabb and Detective Sergeant Burwood are waiting for the boy to return home from school after briefly interviewing his family, who are understandably reeling from the news that their years of constant bouts of unexplained sickness have in fact been caused by their own 14-year-old blood relative systematically poisoning them.
What a fucking...
Mindfuck.
Yeah, just like literally that's a brain dump right there, isn't it?
Not long after 4:30 p.m., the boy calmly passes the police car parked outside and saunters through the front door and into the hall of his aunt's house at 31 Links Road in Neasden. He shouts hello from the door as if it's any other day and goes into the front room where his family and the two officers are seated.
Hello, officer. How may I help you?
Well, even before the boy entered the room, the officers could smell the ether fumes that were emanating from him.
So he was still huffing?
He's still huffing ether regularly, yes.
Yeah.
Very regularly. This was due, as we've said, to his long-term habit of inhaling the toxic alcohol-based chemical to get high.
Yeah, because he liked to get high.
The first thing, though, that the boy said was to apologize for the smell and claim that it was because he'd been sucking throat sweets, known as Victory V lozenges, after school.
I'm pretty sure that's not the advert they wanted.
No, and I'm sure the Victory V lozenges don't smell like ether either.
No. Well, I don't know, but I'm gonna...
I don't know, but I expect they don't.
Yeah.
He then slowly looks around the room, exuding an air of nonchalant confidence that actually slightly unnerves the two seasoned officers because it was so out of the ordinary for a boy as young as him, when confronted with police, to show this sort of nonchalant confidence.
So they probably expected police are here, panic from the boy, whereas actually they just walked in and he went, "What's happening?"
Yeah, exactly. Inspector Crabb stands up and tells the boy that they are investigating his use of poisons and that they know that he keeps at least some in school and that they understood he often carried them around with him as well. Looking the inspector straight in the eyes, he says, "I am interested in poisons, but I haven't got any at the moment."
Oh, well, that was a lie.
Yeah, that is a lie. The notebooks that the police had found in the boy's school desk, some of which were handwritten by the boy, documenting his macabre experiments on friends and family, along with his favourite reading materials, which were Poisoner in the Docks and 60 Famous Trials of the 20th Century.
Which I have looked up and is available on Amazon.
Woohoo. Thank you, Jeff Bezos.
Don't ever do that on this podcast.
That's right. Anyway, all of those books were on the table in the room. When the boy was asked if they were indeed his, he confirmed it without batting an eyelid. And next, Inspector Crabb asked, "Have you any poisons in your pocket?"
What's in his pockets?
"I don't carry them about," he lies with practiced ease. But Inspector Crabb searched the boy regardless and found 2 stoppered bottles which contained white powder. When asked what the bottles contained, the boy replied calmly, but in complete defiance of his own statement a few seconds before, "One is thallium. The other I don't know about." The other bottle actually contains antimony, as the boy himself would tell officers not long after this when he reached the police station, saying in an offhand way, "The other bottle, it's antimony. I suppose you would have found out anyway."
It's weird to admit to having thallium and then just go, yeah, I don't know what this one is.
Yeah.
That goes against kind of everything that we've learned about him so far in previous episode and this one so far, that he was very aware and very accountable for what he did and what he had.
I think he's still aware. He admits to the thallium because in his eyes, he's already dealt with that. He's cremated.
Yeah, okay.
Or he's had that body cremated. There is no way that they can check Molly's remains for thallium poisoning. That is a murder he has gotten away with scot-free. Is
there a level of understandable remorse in what he's doing then? Is it by hiding one of them?
I don't think so.
No.
I think he knows what the police might know.
Has he just shit his knickers because the cops are there?
Slightly. Now, over the course of the short questioning in the front room, the boy told the two officers that he had obtained various poisons from pharmacists, but he denied ever using atropine on his sister. At this early juncture, before he had any real idea of what the police actually knew, he denied a lot that he would quickly and subsequently confess to as soon as he realised the police know this.
Right, okay, so he's willing to play the fool until he's caught.
Yeah. He claimed to begin with to have only used the poisons that he had obtained on plants and small animals, and never on his family or friends. He also cleverly avoided any questions pertaining to his stepmother's death, which was still thought to have been natural.
It's mad that they're at this scenario where they're like, mate, you need to come with us because of poisoning. But it's all right about your mum's death.
Yeah, they're not even suspicious. But I also think it's very interesting the way he can prevaricate and lie without any problem, despite what must have been a very high-stress situation. The officers, remember, had cautioned him more than once, and he knew that he was being investigated and would be arrested for at least some of the serious crimes that he'd been committing. Yet he seems able to lie without issue or without outward indication, even directly contradicting things that he himself had just said seconds before.
Does that come back to then, you mentioned it briefly in the previous episode about the inability to associate empathy with anything?
Yeah, exactly. He can't empathize with people at all.
So
his moral compass is non-existent.
There is no moral compass there, and he can quite easily go, yeah, I did it, but that didn't mean it. I didn't, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
He probably...
Best sentence I've ever made in this podcast right there.
He probably makes no real distinction between lies and truth.
Okay.
And because that's what usually happens with psychopaths or sociopaths who can lie that well.
Yeah, and...
They make no discernible difference internally between lies and truth.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought it up briefly in the previous episode about being on an autistic spectrum, and I know we don't officially talk about a spectrum for autism anymore. No. But when we're looking at this in historical glasses, shall we say, it's easy to place somebody on that, but it's not for us to say that because it's not... He had never had a diagnosis, so that's not... No. Or I'm assuming...
No, he never had a diagnosis of autism or anything like that.
But we can say reasonably that a generic outlook that falls into that.
Especially considering how much more we know about it now than then.
And I would like to say, like, we have had people listening to the podcast before that say that's not what autism is, and that's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is there are certain traits that go alongside
markers.
it. Yeah. And that he falls into a bunch of them.
Yeah. If there's a Venn diagram.
Yes. Then he's right in the middle of a bunch of them.
For the listeners, Ali's making circles in the air with his hands, which you can't see.
Loved it.
Yeah,
Loved it.
Great. The two officers, D.I. Crab and D.S. Burwood.
D.I. Crab. I've ordered that on a menu before.
Detective Inspector Crab. Or D.I. Crab.
D.I. Crab.
They took him in for further questioning at Harlesden Police Station, where he was immediately charged with knowingly administering toxic substances to his sister Winifred. Further charges would be added after more questioning, but his Aunt Wynne was allowed to see him that evening. After he was brought out of his holding cell, she pleaded with him to tell her why he'd done it. But the boy looked at her, saying nothing, and then quietly asked the attending officer to return him to his cell.
Well, it's literally no remorse.
No.
Yeah.
His father, Fred, was still incredibly unwell in hospital from the antimony that he'd been given for months by his son. In fact, he wouldn't even be told of his son's arrest for 2 days when his doctors felt that he was strong enough to handle the news. I can't imagine what that must have been like for him.
Fucking terrifying.
To learn that your child had not only been deliberately poisoning people, but his own family and yourself to such a degree that you are now hospitalized with irreparable liver damage.
It's at that point where you go, what else have I missed almost? Like, what are you looking... I can just imagine his father lying in his hospital bed, realizing how ill he has become because of this, going, fucking, what else has he been doing?
It's absolutely bonkers. But Fred would make a statement to the Sunday Mirror a few days later. He said, Winifred and Wynne, that was his sister and daughter, had been keeping some things from me. They suspected that Graham had been responsible for Molly's death. They knew about his interest in poisons and poisoners, his books on the subject, his weird drawings, and so on. They put 2 and 2 together again, and this time they came up with the right answer. But they didn't tell me. They reported their suspicions instead to a doctor, and finally the police were called in. The game was up for him. All I knew lying there, and I really was near to death, was that a nursing sister came to my bedside and told me as gently as she could that he had been taken away by the police. Then a detective came in and was allowed to talk to me for a short time. He asked me a few questions, and suddenly it all fell into place. I knew for the first time what he'd been doing. He was a deadly poisoner. It was the most shattering blow of my life, and I can't really describe how it felt. And how could you?
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that, to be honest, other than, like, it's the worst game of Kerplunk ever. You pull one stick out and literally everything falls down and you go, oh, fuck. There's, like, I would imagine, like, and I am speculating here entirely, that he had a feeling that his son probably wasn't
normal.
In inverted commas, we don't like to use that word. But you don't want to put a full scale, he's poisoning his his stepmother, and sister and everything right in until that moment right there. That moment right there goes kaplunk.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah.
Imagine how that would have felt.
I can't.
Neither can I.
I don't want to either, to be honest.
I know. On the 24th of May, 2 days later, the boy was interviewed by Detective Inspector Crabbe, and he gave a full statement, which I'll read in a moment. When the officer sat down across from him, he almost immediately said, I think I will tell you all about it. It's been an obsession with me, like taking drugs.
Right, okay.
Crabbe cautioned the boy calmly, who was seated opposite him, and he asked if he wanted to write his own statement, or if he wanted anybody else present, such as a member of family or indeed a lawyer. But shaking his head, however, the boy answered, I'd rather tell you on your own. You can write it down. The statement is both chilling in its cold confession of some of the boy's crimes and also telling in its omission or obfuscation of some others. It reads as follows. I have been very interested in poisons, their properties and their effects since I was about 11 years old. In May last year, 1961, I bought 25 grams of antimony potassium tartrate from Rees Limited, Neasden Lane. Within a couple of weeks, I tried out this poison on my friend John Williams. I gave him 2 or 3 grains at school. I can't remember how I caused him to take it. I think it was probably on a cream biscuit or a cake. He was sick after taking it. I gave him a second dose in May in the same way, and in the following month, I gave him another 2 doses. Always 2 or 3 grains, and always on food at school. After this, I started experimenting at home, putting sometimes 1, sometimes 3 grains onto prepared foods which my mother, father, and sister ate. I must have eaten some of the poisoned food occasionally, because I became sick as well. I know that after eating these prepared foods, my family were all sick. My mother went to our doctor about her sickness. By September of last year, this had become an obsession with me, and I continued giving members of my family small doses of antimony tartrate on prepared foods. In November of 1961, I bought 2 ounces, in separate ounces, of antimony tartrate and 1.5 grams of belladonna from Edgar Davis chemists near Neasden Lane. One morning at the end of November, it was on a Wednesday, I was getting up, getting ready to go to school. I had breakfast in the kitchen and my sister's cup was on the dresser containing a small quantity of milk. I put 1/16 grain of belladonna in the milk and then I left for school. That night when I got home, my mother told me that my sister had been ill during the day. When my sister came home from work, she told us all the symptoms of her illness, and I knew that it was the effects of the belladonna. I was asked by my mother if I knew anything about it, but I denied it. After this, I gave the remaining belladonna to my friend, John Williams. He lives at 52 Layfield Road. I think he still has it in his room. When I first bought the antimony from Reese, I also bought digitalis, but I didn't use this. I gave it to a friend, Richard Hands. He's at my school, and I think I gave him 6 ounces. I think he gave some of it to John Williams. Since the beginning of this year, I have, on occasion, put antimony tartrate solution and powder on foods at home, which both my mother and father have taken. They have become ill as the result of this. My mother lost weight all the time through it, and I stopped giving it to her about February. I also stopped using it altogether then. After my mother died on the 21st of April, I started putting antimony tartrate on foods at home and in milk and water that my father was drinking. As a result of this, he became ill and was taken to hospital. He had only 1 attack of vomiting when he was at home, but this came on when he was in hospital, and I then realized how ill he was. I can't think of anyone else that I've given poison to, and I know that the doses I was giving were not fatal. But I knew I was doing wrong. It grew on me like a drug habit, except that it wasn't me who was taking the drug. The 2 small jars that you found on me yesterday contain thallium sulfate and antimony and potassium tartrate. This antimony is the one I've been using at home, and I bought it from Edgar Davies in November of last year. I bought the thallium from a chemist in Willesden, just as one enters Willesden High Road from Dudenhill Lane. I've not given anyone doses of thallium. I realise how stupid I've been with these poisons. I knew this all along, but I couldn't stop.
Beautifully read, Alistair. Thank you for that. Holy fuck, 14-year-old and being able to write that is quite something.
Yeah? Well, he dictated it.
Well, yes, but to voice that at 14 is quite something.
It is. And as we've just heard, the statement reads like a full confession. But it also contains several of what we know to be lies. We know, for example, that his obsession with poison started far earlier than he claimed. And we can see that he failed to mention many instances of poisoning that we know took place, such as the poisoning of Chris Williams at Regent's Park Zoo. He also denied ever using the thallium that he had obtained on anyone.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Like, considering that confession that he's just given about, I mean, full honesty in that, he said what he did, but do you take away from that he definitely didn't use the thallium, or is
he used the thallium.
So he should.
He will confess to using the thallium in a page or two.
In a page or two.
He is lying right now.
And do we definitely know he used that on his stepmother?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. Fine.
Yeah, there's no doubt in our mind of that.
Why dictate so, I mean, arguably beautifully, to confess your crimes and then admit? Is that just because he's 14 years old?
It's not. I think he's maybe not even cleverer than we're giving him credit for, but I think he's more clever than we're thinking. I think he's admitting to what he knows the police could know or do know, and denying or omitting anything that the police don't know or might not know. The police think that his mother died of thallium, of natural causes.
Without the use of thallium.
Without the use of thallium.
It's a really interesting kind of cross point there where he goes, I don't want to stand up and say, and put himself into more trouble than he's already in.
Exactly.
But he knows he's fucked at this point.
He knows he's fucked, but right now, he's only being charged with administering a noxious substance to his sister.
Yeah.
Not even with the intent to kill.
Yes.
He admits using thallium on his stepmother. That's murder.
Yeah. And I don't know, I was just playing in my mind there while you were...
Reading?
No, not while you were reading, while you were talking beyond the reading. Was like, is he smart enough to know that I'll admit to what you know, rather than, say I've done more?
Yes, I think he is.
Yeah.
Especially if we're considering him to have a sort of neuropsychiatric disorder like psychopathy or sociopathy. That is exactly what they would do. They would plant lies inside truths to make them more swallowable, to make them easier to digest, so to speak.
There's almost a level of self-preservation beyond the point.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, this is a classic trait of the serial prevaricator or liar, the planting of lies and omissions within truths to confuse and obfuscate perceived reality. The most important truths that we did hear, though, for me, were, I know that the doses I was giving were not fatal, but I knew that I was doing wrong.
Oh yeah, the admission of guilt that's wrapped up in that.
Yeah, this is pertinent for two reasons, I think, because it shows that even if he couldn't fully comprehend the consequences of his actions beyond the abstract, he had sufficient understanding of societal morals to know that he was doing wrong, even if he may not have shared those morals himself.
Which is weird, because that almost goes against the kind of conversation we had in the first episode there, was like, did he know what he was doing? Yes, he knew what he was doing, but it was experimental at that point. We're now moved on some months to the point where it's no longer experimental. He's fully acknowledging his findings almost.
Exactly. And although the authorities still think that his stepmother Molly died of natural causes, we know from a later confession of his that she died from a huge dose of thallium. And he says himself, I know that the doses that I was giving were not fatal. And he did.
Yeah.
He knew a lot about fatal and non-fatal doses. So when he dosed Molly that final time, he knew exactly what was going to happen.
Well, that changes the theory on murder, premeditation, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he knew fatal, non-fatal through testing.
Yes. Not just in an abstract sense from a textbook. He knew it from testing.
And I'm not removing from the fact that killing his stepmother is the worst thing that he's done so far. The ability to get there to know what he was doing is terrifying, man.
I know.
It's really I can't comprehend that level of inhumanity almost.
I know. What could make someone like that?
Not doing nature nurture. We're not doing it.
No, we're not doing it. But that is one of the things I will touch on if I ever actually write this up fully.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's something.
It's what most interests me. What could make a person like that?
If we come back to the fourth episode, I'll let you do your three. If we come back to our fourth episode and doing it, I have a lot of opinions on nature nurture that you and I have shared and talked about at the time, and I will try and not get riled up about it, and we can have a blether.
Love it.
Getting
back to the story tonight.
Back to where we were, sorry.
The boy would appear at Willesden Juvenile Court on the 30th of May, 1962, represented by Miss Jean Southworth of Lincoln and Lincoln Solicitor. During this sitting, which was an early sitting, preliminary evidence was heard pertaining to the poisoning of his sister Winifred only. Interestingly, and unusually, the boy himself was actually allowed to cross-examine and question witnesses.
At 14 years old?
At 14 years old. Now, this delighted this 14-year-old narcissist who wanted to be known as the greatest poisoner ever.
Of course it did. It
because
gave him a platform.
Show off how intelligent he was and give him a platform, exactly. But it also alarmed the rest of the court, as he showed far greater understanding of chemistry, toxicology, and poisons than any normal adult, let alone any 14-year-old boy, and quite a few of the expert witnesses that were called.
I was about to ask that. Are putting him up there with a pharmacologist or an expert?
Yes,
Which
100%. In that specific field, yes.
Maybe not so far like the use of penicillin and all that kind of stuff, but the specific uses of toxology within the human.
Almost everything. His obsession with pharmacology and toxicology cannot be overemphasized. He would go through the ingredients of bleaches and household cleaning products, telling his family what all of the different ingredients could do if ingested in larger quantities than were listed there.
And as far as we know, he was able to extract them and use them to his whim.
If he'd wanted to.
Because he was that good at what he was doing.
Yeah.
Fucking honestly, like, I wasn't very good at anything when I was 4. That's not true. I was pretty good at rollerblading.
Yeah.
But that was about the peak of my life.
I'm glad you said rollerblading there, not skateboarding.
No, it wasn't skateboard. It was rollerblading, man.
You were good at rollerblading, I'll give you that.
I did a double backflip. A couple of times.
I can do 3/4 of a backflip while shouting "there is no spoon."
I've seen it, and it's one of my favourite moments of all time.
Yep. Now, at this preliminary hearing, when the arresting officer, Detective Inspector Crabb, was questioned, he made it clear that sufficient further evidence existed to also charge the boy with poisoning Chris Williams and his own father, Fred Young. These charges would be added when the boy next appeared in court. But there was some debate in court over what to actually charge him with. I won't bore you with the details because it's actually quite long-winded, but it boiled down to whether he administered the poisons maliciously with the intention of endangering human life, or deliberately, but as he claimed, always in non-lethal doses and more to annoy people than to endanger them.
It's still malicious, though, isn't it?
It's still malicious. It's a very long... It's like a 3-week debate that went on, basically whether he was to be charged under Section 23 or Section 24.
Right, okay.
But since neither of them are murder charges, it makes very little difference.
So there was no... there was no intent to murder considered?
Nope.
That's baffling.
Yeah.
Well, it's not baffling because we are looking at it again from the prospects of...
Hindsight
and history, because they haven't at this point still, correct me if I'm wrong, associated the stepmother's death.
Completely no. They still think Molly died of natural causes.
Sorry, I keep coming back to that, but I just find it baffling that we're at this stage now that they haven't gone, and obviously they can't go back to tests because they've cremated, but surely there must be an element of
suspicion.
Yes.
Certainly from his family now.
Yeah.
His extended family, his aunt, uncle, and cousin, they were always bloody suspicious of him and believed that he poisoned his mother-in-law for a while now. His father and sister Winifred now probably believe that he poisoned their...
But the forces that be didn't?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Death certificate said...
Yeah. And that wouldn't be changed retrospectively?
Nope.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Now, in terms of this slight legal debate, they would possibly foolishly, with hindsight, choose the lesser of the charges.
I mean, we've talked about this on occasion where they try for one murder instead of 6 or whatever it happened to be. Because if you can try for a lesser charge, you can get a conviction.
Yeah, basically, if they went for the lesser charge, he would plead guilty.
Right.
In this case.
So you can almost guarantee a conviction.
You can guarantee a conviction. He will plead guilty.
But if they'd gone for what he should have been tried for, it would have been a long trial.
It would have been a much longer trial. It would have cost more. And if they'd known that he'd killed his stepmother, they would have tried him for murder.
Because I suppose in this scenario, and I am speculating, and I imagine you'll tell me in due course, that he was never going to get a death sentence because we're too far into history. We're beyond hangings at this point. And he's not going to get a full life order because they didn't exist until the 80s.
Yeah.
So where do you place this human at 14 years old, having, whether you try him for first-degree murder, which it is.
100%.
And I know that's an American term, but you know what I mean. Or you try him to get him somewhere. He's always going to end up in a hospital rather than a jail.
100%.
So that changes what the trial's aspect is.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't like it, but
it does.
Yeah.
Now, it would be July before the final trial concludes, and the defense having pled guilty to all 3 lesser charges. The boy, still just 14 years old, was sentenced to 15 years in the Broadmoor Medical Facility.
In 1960...
1962.
Right.
Yeah, July 1962.
So he was sentenced to serve that right up to the point, not long before we were born. Like,
Yeah. Technically, he could still have been there when we were born. Just.
this is the most modern Twisted Britain we've done in
I know.
a long time, Al.
I know. But it fascinated me so much.
No, carry on, by all means.
So 15 years in Broadmoor. Before this, though, he first spent time at the Ashford Remand Centre. Here, he was questioned and examined by a number of psychiatrists and doctors before going to Broadmoor. Dr. Blair, who saw him on a number of occasions, wrote, "In spite of his high intelligence, he has an inherent defect in his personality. Or in other words, he has a psychopathic personality. It would seem that it is this defect which renders him narcissistic and accounts for his extraordinary apathy and lack of appreciation of the social and ethical consequences of his administration of drugs to produce poisoning in his relatives and friends. However, there seems also to be about him a certain detachment from reality and a progressive diminution of emotional reaction that possibly indicate an incipient schizophrenic process, but there is no other evidence of overt schizophrenia at present."
So to surmise, he's not mad, but he's done some mad stuff.
What we see here confirmed is what we already knew with hindsight, and maybe because mental illness is so much more prevalent now. The boy that we're talking about, the sort of boy who at 12 or 13 years old could coldly poison his family and friends, has a major neuropsychiatric disorder of some sort. Undiagnosed. Shock. Now, we don't have time to discuss psychopath versus sociopath.
Or the intelligence or knowledge to go with that,
No.
actually, Alistair. Like,
We don't.
We don't have the knowledge base to discuss it. We know people who do, and we will ask them.
Yeah.
But it's not our place to put that out there.
No. And also we don't have the time, because I'd also like to read excerpts from Dr. Fish, who spoke to his family as well as examining the boy prior to his prosecution.
Read on.
"On examination, he is quiet and well-mannered. His general appearance is neat and tidy. He is quietly and conventionally dressed. He converses freely and answers all questions readily and intelligently. He shows no gross defects of memory. He shows no abnormality of his thought content, and there is no evidence of delusion or hallucinations. The results of intelligence testing show him to be well above average intelligence. He quite clearly enjoys discussing poisons and his experiences with them, and he has no sort of reticence in giving details of the doses of poisons that he's given his relatives or his friends. As far as can be seen, he chose his relatives for his poisoning experiments because of their propinquity, closeness. And he admits this freely. He describes the administering of poisons to them rather as an adult might describe a chemical experiment which took place in a laboratory which was unconnected with human victims. He describes the symptoms of his victims freely with interest, but without emotion. His uncle tells me that he used to come back from the hospital after visiting his father, whom he had poisoned, and describe the symptoms with a similar interest. He makes it very clear that he considers himself extremely knowledgeable about the effects of poisons, the clinical symptoms, and the amount which is likely to be fatal or not. He is at times almost patronizing towards myself in this connection, only too ready to correct me and not quite able to accept that he might be wrong. There is no abnormality in his emotional reactions other than an absence of real feeling towards others, including the relatives who he poisoned. He shows a superficial emotional response towards those who have cared for him and those who have been of use to him, but this is of an infantile level. As I've said, he shows no proper regret for the sufferings he has inflicted on those who have cared for him, or on those whom he has been apparently on friendly terms, but who were the victims of his experiments. While he appreciates fully that his acts of poisoning were against the law and against socially accepted codes, he appears to have no moral sense whatsoever in relation to these acts. This is, in my opinion, a case in which there is a failure to develop moral feeling, and with this, a true moral sense, together with a lack of feeling towards others. There's nothing to suggest that this condition is due to mental illness or to any failure in upbringing. I consider it to be a disorder of the mind resulting in seriously irresponsible conduct and so constituting a psychopathic disorder within the meaning of the Mental Health Act 1959. In my opinion, he requires care, supervision and treatment in a suitable mental hospital. In view of the dangerous nature of his behaviour and his absence of moral sense, I can only properly recommend that this should be a maximum security hospital.
2 things.
Yep.
Wonderfully read. Second, thank you for clarifying the words I didn't know.
I'm there for you.
Thanks, man.
To be fair, I had to look up propinquity.
Yeah, well, it was the one that you went, because you looked me dead in the eye and went, Bob doesn't know what this fucking means, so thanks for
I
that.
didn't know what that meant either. I had to look it up.
And if you don't know, there's no chance I do.
Yeah.
So, if I may do my 10-word surmise of that, basically, the expert in this scenario is saying there's no chance he should not... Sorry, there's no chance in any way that he should not be locked up. He has to be locked up, but we can't lock him up in a jail.
Yes.
He has to go to a secure unit where his brain can be looked after.
Yep.
Essentially, because he's beyond the grasp of reality. So we need to look after him and the others.
Yeah. Both doctors, Dr. Fish and Dr. Blair, mention a failure to develop proper moral sense. And they mention his narcissism and his sense of massive self-importance. Both mark him as highly intelligent, but dangerously obsessive and detached from reality, without a single regret for what he's done.
Terrifying.
So in July of 1962, this 14-year-old boy became the youngest patient of Broadmoor since the 1800s.
Wow.
Age, of course, makes little difference inside the red brick Victorian walls of that facility, and he was treated much the same as any other patient. The only acknowledgement to his unusual age was a rug in his cell and a hot beverage on his first night.
We brought a Bovril to get you in. Fucking great.
You'd hope it was a hot toddy.
It's not. He's 14, mate. He's getting a cup of gravy and fuck off.
That's rubbish. Poor guy.
Nope. He's been poisoning folk for 14 years.
Oh, yeah,
Al.
okay, fair enough. I have very little remorse for him, you're right.
None.
At the end of his first month, his family were allowed to visit for the first time. His father, Fred, was unable to come since he was still recovering from and very angry about the whole poisoning and irreparable liver damage thing.
Oh, yeah, the wee passive stuff that happened along the way.
Exactly. He's still quite upset about that. But his sister Winifred and his aunt and uncle and cousin, Sandra, all took the 3-hour round trip to see him.
Still family, though, I suppose.
I know, but I've said it before. I can't imagine what these people must have been feeling doing something like that. Going to visit your brother or cousin or nephew who you've watched grow up, but who you also know has been poisoning dozens of people, yourselves included.
Well, I suppose that's the point there, is it's literally the people that were going that had been...
These were the victims.
Victims, yeah, totally.
These are the victims, Bob.
They're
going to see their poisoner.
Do you think they were self-identifying as victims at this point, though?
Ooh, great question.
I'm just wondering out loud, like...
No.
They had... they're dealing with the loss of a family member. They're dealing with the locking up of a family member in an institution. I wonder if their brain space is not in the place where they're going, oh, we were also a victim of his.
No, they don't think of themselves as victims, to be honest. With the exception of Fred, who was still livid.
Yeah, yeah.
They all felt sorry for him.
That's mad.
They felt that he was a member of their family who had some sort of mental illness that they didn't understand. That he had done these things, but that it wasn't his fault. And Winifred, in her memoirs, Obsessive Poisoner, talks about how she was ready on that first visit to start forgiving her brother.
That in itself is more baffling than the visiting him.
Mm-hmm. It is wild. And now, the conversation at this first meeting was described as awkward and stiff to begin with, but also emotional. No one seems to recall exactly what was said at the start, until the boy leaned forward in his chair and without apparent emotion said, "I gave Molly 20 grains of thallium the night before she died. I put it on a trifle. I knew she would die the next day because I gave her so much. One stops the kidneys from working, that's antimony, and the other disintegrates the bones. That's why they never found out."
Fuck, man.
Yeah. His Aunt Wynne broke the stunned silence by asking how could he have had the nerve to go with his father to collect the death certificate, knowing what he'd done. He replied, "Because they would never have found out. I wasn't stupid enough to give them both the same. Daddy's symptoms were different. And if he died, people would just have thought he'd pined away because of Molly's death. But I am sorry for all I've done."
That comes back to what we were talking about in the first episode, the ability to distance himself from being caught by using different poisons on different people. Is that ability to, like, I don't want to use the premeditation as a term, but he's literally thinking about what he's doing.
Yeah. And putting a lot of thought into it as well.
Yeah, considerable amount.
The thought of an obsessive.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it is. This was also the first time, though, that he'd admitted to anybody that he'd actually killed his stepmother.
That's the first point where, yeah, okay.
And it was probably a good thing that his father wasn't there to see his son confess to killing his wife.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good thing in every scenario that happens in, yeah.
And even with this bombshell, his family still felt they couldn't condemn him and they would continue visiting throughout his long stay in Broadmoor.
Okay. I've got, literally, my brain's firing, man. Like, you know, you understand why somebody visits their family in jail when they've done something. Like, if you get locked up for, I don't know, I'm picking something out of the air, like knocking somebody down with a car or something like that. You can understand it. There's no malice in that act. But in this case, the boy has been constant malice.
Yeah.
It has been a case of every time he's issued a grain or 3 grains or whatever, he's been looking for an outcome. And the outcome has culminated in the death of 2 people at this point. 1 person at this point.
1 person at this point.
But it's been seeking. It's been constantly seeking for more and more reaction, almost like, how far can I push this? And that to then go down the line of, oh, why am my family? I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I would expect he would think that his family would continue to visit him. But the family doing that is mad. I've spoken around in a circle there, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. I find it hard to comprehend as well. Now, although his stay at Broadmoor was lengthy, it also certainly wasn't long before he was implicated in the death of a fellow patient.
Oh, yeah. Riddle me this, Alistair.
John Berridge was an absolute nutcase, to be honest. He was formerly an RAF officer stationed in West Germany. However, during his incredibly stressful time there in the mid-50s, he snapped. And while on leave at his parents' house in South Wales, he told his parents that he was a traitor, that he'd been approached by Soviet agents and that he had sold confidential information to them for sums of money.
Just sums.
Sums. Just
of
sums.
money. A bag.
Not even amounts, they just gave him the sums on paper.
Shit joke, carry on.
Now, John Berridge's father reacted by threatening to expose his son to the government.
I'll tell the old government about you.
John Berridge reacted by taking a 12-bore shotgun and shooting his mother and father in their own bedroom.
Fuck you, it's escalated there.
For his crimes, he was sentenced to Broadmoor in the summer of 1959.
PTSD gone mad.
Yes. It's a terrible crime. But in August of 1962, the crime which might very well have seen him sentenced to death was snoring.
Right.
And the judge, jury, and executioner might have been the youngest patient in Broadmoor.
The boy.
The boy. Our patient, the boy, wrote letters to all of his family, frequently, except for his father, Fred.
Well, we know he was a writer, like not in the I'm writing fucking a novel or that, but he was.
He did try writing novels.
Oh, did he?
It did not work. They were terrible.
Not great.
No.
Any that you could read?
No.
No. Okay. But we know he had jotters and jotters full of observations.
Yeah.
So he was somebody who would actively take notes.
Yes. He was someone who would actively take notes, and he actively wrote to all of his family.
That doesn't surprise me that seems
quite frequently
on par, yeah.
In these letters, he complains bitterly for some weeks just after his admission about the loud snoring of another patient, John Berridge, and of his fury at being kept awake.
I mean, we've all had this. Like I've
had it sleeping in a hostel with you.
I don't snore, Alistair.
No, you don't. It's right. It's true.
You were in a hostel with Sarah last week. It might have been her.
She doesn't snore, she says, and I have to believe her because apparently I punched her in the night last night.
We'll get to that story after the podcast. You're going to jail, boy.
Anyway, on the 6th of August, 1962, John Berridge was found unconscious on his bed. He wouldn't recover, and his autopsy found cyanide in his stomach.
Where the fuck's he getting cyanide from in Broadmoor?
He must have ingested the poison at dinner the previous night.
No, but my question stands.
It's a good question. How could any patient get cyanide inside Broadmoor to either poison another inmate or to commit suicide?
Yeah, well, I mean, famously it was cyanide capsules that were given to the RAF, was it not?
It was.
During the Second World War, they were given one capsule that if they got caught, bite it and fucking, that's you.
Yeah. Well, one possibility. A still was discovered at the back of a vegetable plot at Broadmoor. It was believed at the time that it must have been used to try to distill moonshine or booze of some kind. But it could very well have been used to distill the laurel bushes which grew prolifically in the hedges and which contain quite large amounts of cyanide.
Is that right? Excuse my ignorance on this entirely, but you can get cyanide from laurel.
You can get cyanide from laurel. I'm not going to tell anybody which part of the plant or anything like that, but it can be done. Now, the boy would have known how to do this. And in all honesty, he'd very probably done it himself with his chemistry set just to see if he could.
He'd probably done it 4 or 5 years previous to that, when he got his gift from his dad that was a stupid idea.
Yeah. Now, administering the dose would actually have been relatively simple since they all ate in a large communal eating hall.
Yep.
But despite suspicions, John Berridge's death was listed as suicide.
Of course it was, because he distilled his own cyanide and put it in his own meal.
They never questioned how he got the cyanide, although, I've not written it, but an inmate that he stayed with did, after his release, say that John Berridge had said that the Soviets had snuck cyanide into him.
Yeah, but you can't take his word for that. He's already gone.
He's a nutcase.
Yeah. I don't know if we can use the word nutcase, Al, but he's gone. He's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll leave it in, but yeah, fuck it. He's a nutcase.
So the boy was in Broadmoor for years. Not 15 years, but years.
So he didn't do his full 15-year sentence?
He wouldn't do his full 15-year sentence.
Okay.
No. But he was in Broadmoor for years, and there is a wealth of information which we don't have time to cover tonight. Anyone who's looking to read up on this, Carol Ann Lee does a fantastic book, which I've been referencing slightly tonight.
I was going to ask you, you've quoted most of your quotes from the trial, and the experts have come from a specific book that you've had in front of me. It looks a lovely book, actually.
Carol Ann Lee, A Passion for Poison. It is very good. It's very in-depth.
Right. And you would recommend it to
I would highly recommend anybody who wants to know more about this case to absolutely pick it up.
Check it out.
Yeah.
You can get it in all local bookshops.
That's right. Don't get it from Amazon.
No.
Because we're against that, apparently. Now, in the beginning, there was little, if any, discernible change in the boy's character, his habits, or his obsession. He continued to idolize Hitler, and he made himself a swastika to wear around his neck.
Oh, of course he did.
He listened to Wagner continuously in the common room, despite frequent complaints from other patients.
I mean, I'm not against listening to Wagner.
Not constantly, though.
Not constantly. You need to mix it up with a bit.
It's the constantly. Constantly, it's like a Guantanamo Bay thing.
It's just like drip fed into you.
Stop playing me the Rheingold.
Name another Wagner tune. Go.
No. Ride of the Valkyries, but that's in the Rheingold. So
I was going to say.
really count.
I was going to say it's the same. It's the same theme. Yes.
I can't even remember what the other two operas in the Rheingold trilogy were called. One was the Rheingold.
I had Ride of the Valkyries in my head is what I was thinking, but never mind. We'll move away from our lack of Wagner knowledge, shall we?
It's very minimal, our Wagner knowledge. He also made few friends or acquaintances, and he mostly kept to himself, reading what medical journals he could get and what socialist literature he could find, such as William Shearer's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich and The Scourge of the Swastika by Lord Russell.
So he never lost his love of the Nazis.
Never lost his love of the Nazis.
It's lovely to have something that runs through your entire life, though, isn't it?
Yep.
Mine's been Pokemon. His was Nazis. Very different.
Yours is... I don't know if it's less or more harmful.
That's a debate for another time, Alistair. It's both in slavery. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, there's a big debate there for the Patreon episode.
Do you want to do an episode of the Nazis versus Pokemon?
Yeah, I
one
do.
Day? Okay.
What's done more harm, the Nazis or Pokemon? No.
No.
It's definitely the Nazis, obviously, but it'd be an interesting topic.
It shaped both of us in many ways, but we'll leave it.
It has. Following his admission, and for some months after it, it is recorded that the boy was withdrawn and emotionally unmovable. He was prone to expressing paranoid ideas, and he also experienced hallucinations prior to falling asleep at night. He would be examined and questioned and treated by numerous medical professionals, obviously, during the 8-year stay that he had at Broadmoor. But the psychiatrist in charge of his case at the beginning was Dr. Edgar Udwin. He noted that his behaviour became so deviant that he had to be moved from admission ward to Monmouth House. And there he remained a centre of disaffection for a very considerable time. His small size and his youth led him to ferment disorder in non-violent ways in order to preserve some sort of prominence. He was always in small bits of mischief, always threatening to concoct the most horrifying poisons, because he had learned that this upset patients and staff. He even talked about black magic to the more impressionable patients, to upset them even further. He formed alliances, but always with older and rather stupid men, whom he could influence. At one point, he participated in sending me a message regarding the ease with which nicotine could be got out of cigarettes and used as a poison. At a later stage, he got amongst a group of psychopaths and had to be warned not to stir up mischief, and finally he had to be removed from them.
He found himself a bunch of guys. I was like, shall we stir this pot?
He got amongst a group of psychopaths, Bob. I like to think of this as like a flock of them, like sheep.
Oh yeah. Cool.
And he got amongst them.
He sent out his psychopath dog to round them up, and then just stood in the middle and went, "Let's make some mischief, boys."
Woohoo!
That sounded way more gay porno than I thought it was going to.
Way camper than you intended.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Now, the boy acted out in other ways as well while he was in Broadmoor. He was found on more than one occasion teaching or instructing other inmates on how to make poisons.
Like, and I don't know how many times we have to say this. We never like to put perpetrators on a pedestal in any way, but boy's smart.
He's a high-functioning, very intelligent sociopath.
To be the youngest inmate in Broadmoor and be around people who were unstable, mentally ill, and control them is an incredible... Like, it's terrifying.
For a 14, 15-year-old boy.
Yeah. Like, I remember being 14 and 15. I couldn't control myself, never mind the people around you. Just...
I couldn't control you.
No, you tried. I just find it, like... I don't want to glorify it, I think is the word I'm looking for. I don't want to do that, but, like, the fact that he had that ability, he must have had some presence and some charisma.
He would have had charisma.
Yeah.
In a different time, it's quite possible he would have been a cult leader.
It's kind of what I was thinking. Like, he was obsessed with leadership, really. Like, you take Mein Kampf and his studies of that and the Nazi Party. He was clearly... And actually, the more I think about it just now, and I'm literally thinking it out loud here, his testing and bringing back and testing and bringing back, that's that. I can do whatever I want. I have the power to control
Exactly.
everything around me.
That's the power.
That's really terrifying.
Yeah.
And it is cult-like. It is, you look at people like Jim Jones and stuff like, and we'll never cover them because we are not in that genre, but these people love that power of do what I say, don't do what I say, do what I say, don't do what I say.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what he's doing, but he's doing it with tiny bits of poison and then
life,
knowledge. And that is actually probably more terrifying than... It's not as bad as the murder that he's committed, but it's really like...
But it's as frightening.
Yeah, exactly. And if he hadn't been locked up, what would have happened?
I don't know.
I don't want to know.
I don't want to think about it almost.
Sorry to interrupt there.
No, not at all, not at all. Another occasion, which you'll probably enjoy, staff noticed that a lot of the other patients were showing the symptoms of intoxication.
They're having a good night.
Now, since no alcohol or unprescribed drugs were allowed, an investigation was launched which discovered that the boy had MacGyvered the gas stove in the canteen to dispense carbon monoxide into the drinks.
Oh, he was making some sick-ass cocktails.
The escaping carbon monoxide from the doctored drinks caused euphoria and inebriation.
And near death, probably.
In large amounts, it would have caused near death.
I just, like I say, I don't want to put him anywhere near a pedestal, but like, that's some
we're not putting him on a pedestal.
Some
we're not
clever
even mentioning his
shit,
name.
man. Like, I'm a 41-year-old man. I have no idea how a 14-year-old got to that level of ability. Like, I've been good at a few things in my life, but never to this level. It's just insane to me that we can talk about somebody who is a child, essentially.
Yeah, he is a child.
Having that ability.
14 years old.
Yeah, it's
That's
mad,
a boy.
Man. Yeah.
It's wild. Now, by 1963, Fred Young had begun visiting his son.
Oh, he turned a leaf.
Yeah. But the next few years would see little change in the boy, who was also his son. This wasn't for lack of treatment. During these years, the boy was on a constant cocktail of sedatives, and he may have received less than conventional treatments as well. I can't actually remember whether he did or not, but I remember reading that they wanted to electroshock therapy him.
I hope not.
I just can't remember if they did.
I hope not, because that's nonsense.
Oh, absolute bollocks, and we know it. In 1966, Dr. Udwin would take over as the boy's official psychiatrist. And after a rocky start and a few standoffs, the beginnings of real progress seemed to be being made by the end of sort of 1967.
At which point he's been in Broadmoor for
5 years.
5 years at this point.
Yeah, 5 years.
So the majority of his stay's already passed, but they're starting to make roads.
Yeah, from his point of view, a third of his stay is gone.
Yes, because
he thinks he's in there for 15 years.
He doesn't know he's getting out at 80.
Exactly.
But
now, there were still incidents as well, though.
Sorry, before you go on, the fact that it's taken a third of his perceived sentence to make some inroads.
To make any inroads.
Is mad.
Or even, let's not say make any inroads. Let's say for there to be any perceived change in his character.
They found a cul-de-sac.
Yeah. Now, as I said, there were still incidents. He was caught having poisoned a tea urn with 2 packets of soap powders.
He didn't give up, did he?
No, he loved poisoning people.
He loved poisoning people.
And he was going to stick with it. But he was talking about and taking responsibility for his stepmother's death, and his behaviour was improving.
So there's been no admission at this point?
No.
Right.
But not everyone was convinced by the boy's apparent recovery. And another inmate, Joseph Fuller, said, "I saw him many times walking on a straight course with eyes staring unseeingly in front of him. And woe betide any member of staff who had the misfortune to be in his path. That unfortunate would be bowled over as if he had never existed."
Get the fuck out my way.
He was obviously suffering from delusions. and a pseudo-superiority complex, which had become progressively worse during his growing up period in Broadmoor. He'd also become more progressively psychotic and ambitious in his intention to destroy his fellow men. It's quite an erudite statement from an inmate.
It is. It's also like very like. It's very like centering as well, because you've got like we've acknowledged that he's 14-year-old, but and we've said he's a child at this point, but that's like a part of your formative years. That's when you are forming who you would be as an adult.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has already made choices beyond what many of us will ever do, like the seriousness of what he's done is insane. But the fact that he's there as a 14-year-old being looked at as a leader an occasion by adults.
On more than one occasion. He's a sufficient figure of authority or leadership that he can ferment dissent amongst the population of Broadmoor.
His want for power is being like injected there. Like he's receiving everything he desired almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
That doesn't make it good.
No, it doesn't. But Dr. Oudwin disagreed with Joseph Fuller. He wrote in 1969, towards the end, during the 18 months he has been regularly under treatment, he has continued to make progress, to the point now where the staff confidently accept him as improved, and where his relationships with them is entirely changed. It was noteworthy in a recent disturbance in the ward that nursing comment was emphatic that he was actually spending hours trying to talk disturbed patients out of further mischief. His relationships with nursing staff have changed, to the point where there is now a degree of friendship possible. He will accept rebukes and not sulk more often than not, and where he has achieved a good working relationship with the handicraft instructors, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that he has made vast progress recently.
Progress from a fairly far gone point.
Progress from a far gone point, and also, if we're thinking of him as somewhere on the sociopathic, psychopathic range, then he's going to be very, very good at manipulating people. In fact, his own doctors have noticed that he forms relationships and friendships with people who are easier for him to manipulate and influence.
Oh yeah, he picks his victims and his crowd very well.
Yeah. He'll be very good. And now he's been observing for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
He will have seen
who's weak.
Not just who's weak, he will have seen the kind of behaviors that get people released.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I see what you mean. Yeah. So you think in this scenario he's fully capable of going, if I do this, I can get out?
Yes, I do. I think he is intelligent enough and has now been observing enough that he will be able to say, if I do this, I will get out. If I do this, I will get kept in.
And I would ask yourself and listeners to excuse my ignorance on this, because I would imagine that some of the people around him will have been much more adult than him.
100%, yes. He was in there with full adults.
But they'd have been way stupider than him.
Almost all of them. There will have been one or two inmates in Broadmoor who were highly intelligent. There were other doctors who'd been convicted of poisoning.
Yes, of course.
But they were few and far between. 99% of the patients in Broadmoor would have been less intelligent than him.
Yes, stupider was a strong word that I shouldn't have used there. But do you think he knew his place in the hierarchy of the ward as such?
Yes, I think he knew it and relished in it, probably.
Right, okay. And that's, I mean, as I said before, he's literally getting what he wanted. It's just not where he wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, like, honestly, we've talked cases before where you've sparkled my brain about different things. This one's actually hurting my brain because I'm really sad and, like, impressed isn't the right word, but, like, he wasn't an idiot. In any way, but I'm really sad about the scenario that we get to get to this.
It's very strange, you're right. If his obsession
had been turned into something else.
Hadn't been focused on poisons.
Or could have been, if he'd found the right level of chemistry to do things on.
Yeah.
If he'd been founded in the natural world, or looking for fucking the tree that solves cancer, or whatever.
This could very well have been a Nobel Prize winner.
It's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, totally.
Had different choices or different incidents happened at points in his life. And that's one of the things that I find fascinating about him.
I mean, I fully understand why this has been one that has ended up in 3.5 hours almost of recording this evening. But that's the bit that I'm struggling with most, is that he just desired power. And if he hadn't just desired power, if you used your knowledge for good, whatever fucking action film you want that to be, if he'd used his knowledge in a different way, so I'm speaking really quickly because I'm quite enjoying this, if he'd used his knowledge base that he'd gone a horrible way in a different direction, it could have been a Nobel Prize, it could have been a cure for cancer, it could have been the end of the AIDS epidemic before it even happened. Who knows what it would have been, because he was looking so intently at the detail.
Yeah.
But what we end up with is a failed serial poisoner in a hospital where he should have been in jail, in my opinion.
He should have.
Because he was given too much freedom in a secure hospital.
Oh, he was. He was still allowed to take books out from the Broadmoor Library with impunity. So he was still reading medical journals and pharmaceutical
and Nazi diaries
journals and Nazi diaries and, the Diary of Kaiser Wilhelm II and stuff. These were all available for him in Broadmoor.
I mean, I would like to have them removed from the Broadmoor Library in the first instance, but it's just, we've talked about cases before where the people are highly intelligent. We've talked about who was the infanticide in Edinburgh.
Jessie King.
Jessie King was not a dumb woman.
No.
She was looking for an out. She went the wrong way, obviously.
Yeah.
But this seems like almost a step beyond anything we've talked about. Like, this kid was mad smart.
Yes.
But really...
incredibly smart.
Really not looked after.
No.
The
he
chemistry
wasn't looked after, and he's had a number of traumas in his early childhood which have affected him greatly. Who knows which affected him most, or whether some affected him at all, but he's come out abnormal.
It's really... Yeah, I think this is my most... there's a couple of sparklers going off in my mind at the moment. I look forward to episode 3, Alistair, because I don't know where we can go from here, to be honest.
Well, it's going to be a good one. But anyway, the perceived improvement in the boy's condition continued, and by July of 1970, he himself wrote in a letter to his sister Winifred, "My dearest Win, many apologies from your wicked, neglectful brother for failing to write to you for such an unconscionably long time. I really haven't had anything remotely interesting to write to you. And besides, when I think back on some of the mind-bending, utterly banal monologues which I've written to you in the past, I rather think that my omission may be counted a virtue rather than a sin. I have, however, some good news to import to you. I had an interview with the estimable Edgar last Friday, and he told me, whether or not a formal recommendation has yet gone in, I have had several conversations with the Home Office about you, and I have got things moving at their end. He also said, I'm going to discharge you in the latter half of this year. As you see from my quotes, the pot is now almost boiling. Just think, Win, another few months and your friendly neighborhood Frankenstein will be at liberty once again."
I love a Marvel quote. Your friendly neighborhood Frankenstein.
That's a weird thing to write, isn't it?
It's a wonderful thing to write, actually. I really enjoy that.
It's a weird one. Many apologies from your wicked, neglectful brother.
My frankincense is tingling. Sounds almost Marvel biblical.
It does.
Yeah. Fuck.
Now, this shows how confident, really, the boy was that his release was imminently likely. And in fact, medical staff at Broadmoor had already spoken to Winifred about her brother's release and where he would stay, whether he'd be staying with her. He would not.
He would not.
No. She would have him for a weekend, and she did actually have him for a weekend. Christmas 1970, the Christmas before his release. He was on partial release, and he spent it at his family's house. And from all accounts, he seemed far better, apart from drinking quite a lot. He did return to Broadmoor promptly, and not long after it, on the 15th of January, Dr. Oudwin would pen what would become a famous, or at least infamous, medical certificate. But Winifred would not have him in her house for a long period of time.
But she was welcome to have him.
She was happy to have him for a weekend,
Yeah.
but she did not want him living with her upon her release. It should be mentioned she now had 2 children of her own.
Oh, okay. So she definitely didn't want him there for that reason.
No, exactly.
It was a case of you can stopgap here, but fix your own life.
Yes.
Right.
100%. Now, before we get to the end, this document that Dr. Oudwin penned, I'll read it because it will become very pertinent in the next episode.
Okay.
I think it will be called Exhibit 2.
Number 2.
At this second trial we'll cover in episode 3.
A second trial. Oh, you tease us much, Alistair.
I do indeed. But for now, on the 15th of January 1971, Dr. Oudwin wrote, "This man has suffered a deep-going personality disorder which necessitated his hospitalization throughout the whole of his adolescence. He has, however, made an extremely full recovery and is now entirely fit for discharge. His sole disability now being the need to catch up on his lost time. He is capable of undertaking any sort of work without any restrictions as to his residence, travel, or environment. His natural bent is towards the non-manual and clerical, and in the first instance he would do extremely well training as a storekeeper. He is of above average intelligence and capable of sustained effort. He would fit in well and not draw any attention to himself in any community. Signed, Edgar L. Oudwin, consultant psychiatrist." And yes, at the subsequent trial in episode 3, that will be exhibited as Exhibit 2.
That's a massive underselling of him. Like, he's capable of being a store clerk. He's capable of being a pharmacist.
Yes, but he's not qualified to be a pharmacist.
He's not qualified, but he's capable of doing way more than that.
I know. But with this document, the boy, Fred Young's son, and Winifred's brother would be released back into society in 1971. And that is where we'll leave this story this week. Until the next part, episode 3, when we will see why he earns the name, the Teacup Poisoner.
Couple of things before we move on. The fact that you're going to leave me with essentially 3 hours of podcast recordings this evening and we're not finished it.
It's hilarious.
You're a dick. We have to come back to who. We haven't clarified how many more episodes yet. You're a dick.
2, probably.
Stop doing probably at the end of
Sorry.
every fucking sentence, man. Honestly, I don't think you've done a case in the last maybe 6 months or so where I've gone, tell me more, as much as this one. You've done a couple of cases, obviously, in the past where I've gone, no, Ali, come on, let's keep going. We've only done 8 minutes or whatever, but keep going. 3 hours.
I get that a lot. You've no idea how many times Sarah says that.
I will leave that to your wonderful marriage up and coming. 3 hours in, I'm not finished with this, so I don't feel you are.
Oh, I'm not.
Definitely not.
We have an episode and a Patreon still.
So before we finish, because we do have to finish up, because that's 2 hour-and-a-half recordings that we don't tend to do this long in a podcast. I'm happy to do it. Is it okay to think, having listened to you, and you've done a whole load more research than I've done listening to you this evening, is it all right for me to think, that boy's smart as fuck and just got let down? Because I think that's where it might be where I'm at.
I really think so. I think in a different time even, this wouldn't have happened.
There's a lot of head shaking going on behind you right now.
No, I don't think it would have happened today. I think signs of his problems would have been spotted
Yeah.
today in a way that they just weren't back then.
I'm not saying that there wasn't going to be malice, always. We talked about I can't remember, is it the McDonald trifecta? The pissing the bed, the hurting the animals, and I can't remember the not sleeping or whatever the third one is. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. He ticks enough of those boxes to go, this is an issue we should deal with and have a think about. But then, at the time frame, I wouldn't have bought him a fucking chemistry set.
No.
When he was distilling shit in the garden. Oh, but would I? I don't know if I would. Now, I come back to what we said 10, 15 minutes ago. Not pedestaling him at all.
No, we're not.
Because everything he did, from testing fucking poisons on his pals to his mum and his dad and everybody else, horrific. Like, piss in the wind, horrific. But dude was smart.
He was incredibly smart.
And could have been used in different ways. If found and directed and educated and nurtured properly.
If that obsession could have been directed down a different avenue early.
Yeah, I think that's my takeaway. But then again, there is obvious malice within his mind there. And as much as we've talked on fucking however many episodes we've done together and the ones I've done with Dean before, we've had a bad bastard list in Twisted Britain throughout the whole thing. And I struggle to place him on a bad bastard list.
I wouldn't.
Because of his age, I think it is.
It's not just his age. I think because, for me, this is a developmental problem. I suppose it is because of his age.
Yeah.
But because of his age, this is a developmental problem. This is not a problem he's had in later life once his personality has been formed. This is something that happened to him early.
It's not somebody in the 30s making a decision to do something.
Exactly.
Let's leave it there.
Until the next episode.
Until the next episode. However, if you have listened to this and you fundamentally disagree with what Alistair and I have just said, please do let us know, because...
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at the comments.
I think...
Sarah makes me.
Yes, she does, and rightfully so. I think this is a perfect point to put out this, because we've said it before, but I think this is fundamentally the essence of what we're talking about here. Ali and I are not experts in true crime. We're not experts in psychology. We're not experts in criminology.
Never claimed to be.
And never will do. We tell you a story, and we always have claimed to tell a story. We don't tell cases because we don't have that background and that knowledge in the area. When you listen to us telling you a podcast, it's basically one of us has researched something and the other one is just bouncing off what we're hearing. So we could fundamentally be wrong in every episode, and we're happy to be told so.
Yeah. We have been.
And we have been. We've been wrong before.
We've been wrong.
And we'll be wrong again. However, our opinions are genuine on the point of recording.
Yeah.
We may change our mind in 20 minutes, and in which case I'll fucking stick it on the internet or whatever. But if you've just listened to the same 3 hours as I have, bearing in mind that I listened to this from blank, and you think Bob's talking absolute fucking nonsense.
He usually is.
I usually am. Please do tell us. Yeah. Like, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Because there's no point in us hiding the fact that we're not pretending that we know what we're talking about.
No, what I would love is to promote discussion.
Yes, 100%. I think that... Do you know what? Fuck off. We're done. Subscribe to social medias. Review us wherever you can. Promote discussion. Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye. I can hear myself. Thank you, bye.